Welcome to Brookfield Perspectives, a podcast that explores the Brookfield ecosystem's role in creating sustainable wealth on a global scale. Today, we have another edition of Deal Debrief, where we get the download on recent transactions from the people who put them together. On this episode, we're talking about Primary Wave, a leading independent music publisher. Larry Mestel, CEO of Primary Wave, and Sachin Shah, head of Brookfield's insurance business, join us to share their perspectives on music royalties as a growing credit investment and how investors are thinking about this emerging segment of the alternatives universe. Larry and Sachin, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you with us today. So I want to kick off. We want to talk more about the partnership between Primary Wave and Brookfield and give people a little bit of context about this industry. And Larry, you are definitely the right person to do that. So I'm wondering if we can just start with you introducing yourself to our listeners and telling us a little bit about how you started Primary Wave and where it sits today.
Sure. So I'm Larry Mestel. I'm the founder and CEO of Primary Wave. We founded Primary Wave back 20 years ago in 2006. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. I started way back. I won't give the year because I don't want to age myself, but I went to school in Massachusetts. I got a business administration degree and I was recruited. And it is very rare I tell people this, okay? So hopefully everybody listening to the podcast will keep it under the cone of silence. But I was recruited by Arthur Young out of school, worked at Arthur Young for a few years. And then I met a gentleman named Chris Blackwell, who was the founder and chairman of Island Records, a legendary label that started in Jamaica and then signed artists like U2 and Grace Jones and Robert Palmer and Steve Winwood and Bob Marley, which he was very famous for. And he hired me. I had met him while a company called Polygram Records that I was helping advise had bought Island Records, met Chris during that process, and one thing led to another, and very happily and luckily, he wanted to hire me to be his right-hand guy back in 1989, so I ran Island Records with him for about 11 years, then went to Arista Records and Virgin Records, and then 20 years ago in 2006, I decided to leave Virgin and be a full-time entrepreneur, and we started Primary Wave back in 2006, and the premise really at the time was that there was a void in the marketplace that legendary artists weren't really getting marketing support from their major labels. And so it gave us a void in the business. It gave us an opportunity to come in. And frankly, I say this when people ask about how I got started, the major music companies, we were going to take a lot of market share away from these major music companies. And 20 years later, we've taken close to $8 billion worth of business away from them.
I'm curious in you explaining how much experience and exposure you had to the industry. What did you see that others weren't treating as this investable asset? What was it about the model or the operational approach to music that people were missing that helped you find that pocket for Primary Wave?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw that great music, if marketed properly, could be a great alternative asset, especially for institutional investors. And we were really the first to think about music in that way 20 years ago. And I remember that one of our partners way back 20 years ago was Credit Suisse. And the reason why Credit Suisse, and they were a little bit ahead of their time, the reason why Credit Suisse wanted to come in and be one of our minority partners at the time was because they were looking for opportunities to collateralize the assets, to create opportunities in the form of securitization. So we've operated under that process for a very long time, which is why when we do due diligence for assets we find and partnerships we make, we're very much doing it in a way that we did it 20 years ago, which is significant financial due diligence, significant copyright due diligence, significant legal due diligence, and we wrap it all up in a bow, and it makes it very easy when you're talking about various types of opportunities down the road. But I think the institutional investors that have come into Primary Wave over the years appreciate that approach to how we're doing due diligence.
Yeah, well, Sachin, that's something you're very familiar with. It would be really helpful to get your take on Larry's framing of this, which is how did meeting him and learning more about Primary Wave from an investment perspective, how did that align for you with what you know about the Brookfield investment ethos?
Well, I'll start with the only similarity between me and Larry was 28 years ago, Ernst & Young recruited me.
There you go.
And then our careers went into completely different directions. Larry is this successful founder and this amazing music industry veteran, and I'm a guy at Brookfield.
And the grass is always greener on the other side, Sachin, right?
Exactly. And as you know, my entire background is doing transactions and helping build various businesses at Brookfield. And I would say the common thread for us has always been if we could find great businesses, starting with great leaders and great founders who had a track record of acquiring high quality assets, often with significant scarcity value, and then could build a team and the capability to work those assets and drive more and more value out of them over a long period of time. It was a great investment for us. And when I met Larry 4.5 years ago, he walked me through the same pitch you just heard, and our jaws hit the ground because we realized there's an asset class here that many of the people that we serve in terms of the institutional market really don't know about, but could act as not only a similar growing stream of cash flow, but a really diversified way of continuing to compound capital. And so it was easy for us to partner with Larry, support the business, help grow it, provide capital, do all the things that we do on our end of the bargain. And I'd say it's gone tremendously well. From a Brookfield perspective, we've committed or put in $1.6 billion into this initiative. We're partners in the business. And so we eat our own cooking. We have real skin in the game.
That's a great jumping off point because, as you say, it was a relatively new business for us at the time. And Larry, there's probably some people listening who are not totally sure how to break down music royalties as an investment. So I'm wondering if we could just take it to that 101 level. What are royalties exactly and how do they work as that cash flow stream?
Sure. So music royalties are basically the right to collect income from songs, either a writer or an artist, either by virtue of a contract or ownership of a copyright. And I think we've uniquely, over the years, expanded to also include things like name, image, and likeness rights for artists, not just the copyright or the contractual artist royalty or master recording. So we've kind of spread the breadth of our ability to generate cash flow. And then the big difference, frankly, between Primary Wave and many of our competitors are what we do with those cash flows. The cash flow comes from those contracts or those copyrights, and then what we do, as opposed to most others who are interested in really the administration aspect of it. So if there's $1 to collect in Spain or England or Indonesia or India or America or Canada, most of the business wants to collect that dollar. We're built to turn that dollar into $5. And that's a big difference. We're built to create alpha. We're built to do brand deals and marketing deals and create content like movies and Broadway shows and immersive experiences. That's how you capitalize on those royalty streams to make them bigger and grow.
That's really the owner-operator approach that we talk about in all of our businesses. And that is really what drew us to Larry, because we had seen similar platforms in the past, smaller, different. All of them were very legal-oriented and very legally driven, i.e., to Larry's point, it was about the contract and can you collect every nickel. Of course, Larry's monetizing all the royalty streams, but the big focus is partnering with artists and ensuring that the artist gets the most relevant and credible exposure long-term, such that their brand actually grows in value and they can capture more dollars, not just the music royalties. And I think for us, it led us down this path of realizing this was a unique platform. And for legendary artists who have a long following and a strong following from maybe work they did 25 years ago, having Primary Wave and the team there rebuild the brand and enhance it is tremendously valuable. And we've seen that play out in the last 4.5 years as we've come into the business.
Yes, Larry, I've heard you talk about this real partnership mindset with these artists. It's as if it's your own and treating it like it's your own, which we, as an ethos here, subscribe to, no matter what the business is. I'm curious, because obviously it's Primary Wave's 20th anniversary. You've been doing this in this industry even a lot longer. How do things change across market cycles or when there's sometimes volatile or more recent inflationary environment? Yep. Have you seen certain trends happen over time, given that some of this music is so classic, it's so timeless, or not?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, that's a great question, because what happens in these inflationary times? Where do people put their money? How do you look at assets? How do you look at risk? It's funny because I always joke that music royalties are better than credit. They're better than standard credit, because the reality is that these assets, talking about inflation, they're inflation positive, because every time Apple or Spotify or a DSP raises their rates, we're the beneficiary of them raising rates because we get a piece of that. If you look at the characteristics of the asset class, you can't match the duration of music royalties in terms of comparing it to credit, because in many cases, songs don't go into public domain for 70 years after the death of the last writer on a song.
This is 35, 40 years of ongoing cash flow streams.
Yeah, exactly. And also, where do you find credit that's uncorrelated to the market? So our best times are when there's strife in the world and people come to music for comfort. So it's uncorrelated to the markets. And also, you can really create alpha like we were just talking about with the right manager. You can create alpha. And it's why we've invested so heavily with Sachin's support and Craig's support and Bruce's support to invest in the platform of creating the world's best, call it digital strategy team, marketing team, brand team, content team, where we can create immersive experiences and biographical films.
We recently signed a deal with The Sphere.
We pitched The Sphere with our partner, Lou Adler and Cisco Adler. We've partnered with Lou on his songs and his catalog. Well, one of the big assets in Lou's portfolio was Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we just signed a deal with The Sphere to allow The Sphere to start airing probably the end of this year around Halloween, October, Rocky Horror Picture Show in The Sphere in Las Vegas from 11:30 to 1 a.m. Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. And if you think of contextually, The Wizard of Oz has done almost $400 million at The Sphere in gross ticket sales. That's a pretty good outcome for Rocky Horror Picture Show, and just have the ability to be marketed, create more brand value and notoriety. So that's the type of marketing and alpha creation that we look to do.
And none of that is contingent on interest rates or the economic backdrop. We invested with Larry, as he said, 4.5 years ago when the 10-year treasury in the US, I'm going to get a little nerdy here, was at 1%. Today it's 4.5%. So we saw all this rate increase, and yet the value of our catalogs has gone up. The cash flows have gone up. The artists that Larry can bring in continue to come in because of the value the team can create. So where you've seen a lot of destruction, maybe is too strong of a word, but where you've seen a lot of issues in the credit space, you've seen none of that in music.
When you look at this through a credit lens from your seat, some of these characteristics that start to stray it out, maybe about this asset class versus traditional fixed income, for example. And I hear you sort of alluding to this potential exponential return that is available to you, even if the fixed income space is in a bit of a tougher spot. Are there other things that have stood out to you about it in the time that we've been in the business compared to the rest of the platform?
I think this business, if done properly the way Primary Wave does it, is the definition of scarcity value. There's only one James Brown. There's only one Bob Marley. And if you look at the artists that are in the roster, they are all true legends, one of ones. And if you're going to market Whitney Houston, no one can come in with a sort of pseudo proxy to Whitney Houston. That just doesn't exist.
It's true.
And I think that's where Larry and the team can really drive value in these properties or these assets.
What are some of the examples of maybe more recent deployments or acquisitions that you've had that you're excited about?
We really have been deploying cash and investing quicker than I think we even thought we would be able to. We bought everything from, and I say bought, it's really partnered because that's our ethos. Partnered with the notorious B.I.G. We just closed a deal to partner with Pete Townsend and The Who, Britney Spears, The Cars, INXS, John Mellencamp. Literally right before this, I just came from screening the John Mellencamp documentary film. It is absolutely fantastic. We love the fact we can add value that way to our artists. We partner with Axl Rose, and I mentioned Lou Adler on a Rocky Horror Picture Show and his great catalog. We just did a deal with Lou Adler. We closed and funded an acquisition of Mick Jones and Foreigner's catalog. And this is special because not only did we buy music publishing rights and masters and master royalties, but in addition to that, we bought name, image, likeness rights. And for the first time, we actually bought the touring rights, the live rights. And there's a special reason for that. The original band isn't touring, Mick isn't touring. So there was a great opportunity. Most artists don't want you to touch their live business because that's really a unique form of income to them. But in this case, Mick wanted to partner with us on the live business, and he owns the trademark to Foreigner. So it's a unique opportunity.
Innovation in all corners.
Yes.
As you say, yeah, it's ever evolving. I'm struck by a lot of the names you're mentioning and going back to something you discussed earlier, which is really the longevity, the staying power of so many of these artists and their talent, and ultimately what becomes a huge asset. I'm curious, Sachin, how that time horizon strikes you relative to our insurance platform, which, we've been growing over time. And when we really think about those longer term horizons that those kinds of businesses and clients are looking for, is there anything unique about, beyond what we've talked about, how that plays with just the insurance portfolio that you're building?
Larry touched on it at the outset of the pod. Most insurance companies have very long dated liabilities, whether you're offering life insurance or annuities. And the hardest part of that is having some predictability of cash flow 15 plus years out. And this business offers that duration. You have a good sense of what your cash flows will be for the long term. And you also have a sense that they'll grow so that you're capturing both inflation and real growth, the alpha that Larry talked about. So for us, it was a no-brainer to bring our insurance capital into the business, supporting growth. And we brought our insurance clients into this business as well. And I think whenever insurance companies look at this as an asset class, that lack of correlation to rates and to credit markets, that duration aspect of it, the stability and the track record that Larry and the team have. And maybe most importantly, even though we're partners with Larry, we're not meddling in the business. It's really this team of creatives that drive all of this, give insurance companies tremendous comfort that this will be a successful long-term investment for themselves.
Just on that note, Brookfield has been an amazing partner. It's not easy in the music space. No one has ever gone out and raised a $2 billion plus fund before. And there's no way we could have done it without the help of the Brookfield team. And also just the ability to be able to close significant deals. We just announced an acquisition that will be closing sometime in the next 30 days of a very sizable music company called Cobalt. And it would have been impossible had we not had the relationship with Brookfield to get through all of what we needed to get through on the transaction and have the capital behind us to say, hey, we're closing. That's really powerful when you're going in and having conversations with potential sellers. There's also a lot of synergy in Brookfield's real estate division and their hospitality division. And it's very interesting. The whole team look at it as a holistic partnership. The fact that we are partners means that it's all hands on deck, and it's very rare to find that in a partner.
Well, I'm struck again by this idea that, again, humans love music, but there's so much that goes into creating it and sustaining it and building value over time, and artists really supporting their livelihood with it. And to your point, it takes so many different facets and so many different ways now to think about sustaining that over a much longer period of time. And in a time that's now so digital, which is so different from maybe when they created the music originally, there's just so much ever-evolving change and innovation and baseline for this business. And the idea that you and us as your partner have been able to keep pace with that change and with that innovation and grow with the opportunity set, I think is what makes it, as you said, Sachin, really unique in terms of an asset class.
Well, and look, if not managed properly, that can cut both ways. Today, in a lot of new music, the talk is about AI. And the good thing with Larry's business, I'm sure he can expand on this, is that when you focus on legendary music, when you focus on legendary artists and songs and artists that have had decades of staying power, there's no AI risk behind that. So I think it's even more important that we found Primary Wave and partnered with Larry and the team because of what they do, because its resilience in the midst of a lot of change is what will make this business even more valuable long term.
I'm curious to close out with this. Has there been a change to either of your summer playlists, given some of these recent deals? What is on the docket now based on what's in the catalog? Have we seen any switches, or is it all classic?
I picked my daughter up from her basketball practice last night and I put Notorious B.I.G. on just so she knows that given I was in high school in the 90s and this was infiltrating my life.
Yes. As a New Yorker, I fully support that choice.
This is one of Primary Wave's iconic artists, but that and Bob Marley is a summer staple.
Well, thank you both. I learned a lot. This was a great conversation. Thanks for having us here today with you to learn.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Larry.
You too, Sachin. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Brookfield Perspectives. Make sure to follow us wherever you listen. You'll be the first to hear when new episodes drop.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any securities or related financial instruments offered or sponsored by Brookfield. The information and views discussed are subject to change without notice. Any investment involves significant risks, including loss of the entire investment.
Audiation.